Single mom's son dials the wrong number. CEO discovers hidden truth that changes everything. The phone rang, a shrill echo through the wall of glass and steel. Rachel Morgan, the CEO of a thriving corporation, barely looked up from her laptop, buried under a mountain of spreadsheets and quarterly forecasts. Her mind raced with plans for expansion and profit percentages, but when her assistant handed her the phone, she growled in irritation. "Who is it?" "A kid," the assistant replied, glancing at the screen. "About 12, I think." "Should I put him through?" she snapped, more curious than interested. Jake's youthful voice flooded through the receiver, earnest and bright, unaware of the titan he was speaking to. "Hi, my name is Jake, and I'm doing this project about business." The excitement in his voice surprised Rachel. "I just wanted to ask you, what makes a good entrepreneur? Like, how do you know what's right?" She frowned. Kids didn't typically call her for advice, let alone about ethics. "Well, it depends on your definition of right." Rachel trailed off, hitting a wall. The truth was, she wasn't sure what that meant anymore. With each calculated decision, the weight of responsibility sat heavily on her shoulder. Jake continued, totally unfazed by her hesitation. "My mom works 3 jobs. She's a hero. She wakes up at 5 and comes home so late. It's like she never gets to rest. But she always tells me to follow my dreams. She's amazing." His earnestness shot through the line, cracking something inside Rachel. She remembered struggling, working ever harder to escape a past riddled with debt, guiding her ambition with ruthlessness. His story stirred memories she thought were long buried, the nights spent crammed in a cramped apartment, echoing the determination Jake's voice carried. "Your mom sounds incredible," she finally said, trying to hide the emotion bubbling inside her. "Heck, she even makes dinner on days when she gets so tired. I want to help her. I don't think it's just about making money. It's about making a difference." Jake's voice was fuller now, resonating with a kind of purity Rachel had long forgotten. The conversation ended abruptly, but his words lingered, echoing in her mind like a haunting refrain. Before she could feel the grave implications of the exchange, someone barged into the office, the intense energy shattering her moment of reflection. "Rachel. We have an employee situation. Press is sniffing around." Panic laced her assistant's voice, bringing Rachel back to the harsh reality. Reports of employee exploitation, her company's secret? The fallout threatened everything she had built and clawed for. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." She breathed deeply, feeling the tight knot of tension unfurl slightly. But Jake's call served as a mirror, reflecting her own choices. As they discussed the crisis engulfing her company, the shadows of doubt crept in, her internal conflict swirling like a tempest. Should she defend the company's cutthroat policies, the very practices that led to Jake's mother's struggles? Would she instead risk everything for a chance to change their narrative? The intensity in the boardroom ramped up, accusations flying around like knives, and just before she spoke, Jake's words echoed again, "It's about making a difference." The realization suffocated her under pressure, leaving her heart racing with urgency. At that moment, Rachel faced a crucial decision: uphold the status quo, or challenge it. The weight of her past pressed against her sternum, constricting her breath. She had to choose. For the first time, nothing felt certain. What legacy would she leave behind, not just for herself but for Jake's mom and countless others? Would she be brave enough to make a change, or would fear shuffle her back into the shadows? The clock ticked louder, a relentless reminder that time was running out, and the decision awaited her just beyond the threshold of what she thought she knew. As her resolve hung in the balance, uncertainty left a bitter taste on her tongue, screaming for resolution. Rachel straightened in her chair, feeling the weight of the boardroom's scrutiny. Faces around the conference table looked eager for her reaction, waiting for her to either defend the fortress she had built or acknowledge the cracks in its walls. The shadows of her past wove through her mind a time when business had been just a means of survival, not a glorified game to win at all costs. "Let us revisit the employee reports," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "What exactly do we know?" She aimed to regain control, but the uncertainty gnawed at her. Multiple complaints, Rachel, her VP, Tom, chimed in. Overtime violations and unpaid labor. "If we don't act now, the media will have a field day. We could lose everything." Tom's urgency resonated deeply, but Rachel felt trapped between her ambition and a growing distaste for the practices that had brought her here. Memories of Jake's fervent plea stirred within her. Was success worth sacrificing her ethics? She imagined the faces of mothers like Jake S., working tirelessly without recognition. Who were they, really, behind the numbers and projections? Assuredly, she pushed away memories of late-night spreadsheets and the sacrifices that had landed her in the corner office. This was her chance to choose differently. If she took a stand now, she might not only salvage her company but also breathe fresh life into its very ethos. What if we took a different path? Rachel proposed, a spark of audacity igniting in her chest. Instead of a cover-up, let us be transparent. We'll investigate these claims and implement fair wages for all our employees. The backlash was immediate. Disbelief circled the room like an insistent hawk. "Rachel, are you crazy? That will cost us millions." Tom objected, alarm gripping him. "Or it could build trust," she countered, conviction crystallizing in her voice. "We can create a culture that values our people. What we have built is admirable on the surface, but it's paper-thin if we ignore our foundations." Silence descended upon the team, and Rachel's heart thundered in the quiet resonance of her own courage. Would they follow her lead or abandon her to the wolves? She realized they were not merely her team, but the embodiment of her choices, reflecting her own values back at her. The atmosphere shifted. A few heads nodded slowly, encouraging her. Others remained skeptical, eyes narrowed in doubt. "It's your call, Rachel," Tom finally said, but the resignation in his voice stung. Rachel's mind raced with the implications. If she followed through, there would be no turning back. But bold strides often led to new paths. "Let us get to work on an employee advocacy program," she declared. "Start drafting a press release about our commitment to ethical labor practices." As the meeting adjourned, Rachel received low murmurs of approval from a couple of her colleagues. Yet, the underlying anxiety remained. She would have to face not just the fallout from her decision, but also the powerful opposition awaiting her from within and outside the company. The moment she stepped out, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Jake's mother. Had she sent it out of hope, or was it simply a sign of her unwavering commitment to those who fought for the same dreams? Rachel held her breath, staring at the screen. The words, "I need your help," blurred before her eyes, and an electric jolt surged through her. What did she really know about their story? What if this was just the beginning? Driven by determination and an acute realization that she was now entwined in something much larger than herself, she resolved to meet with Jake's mother. The stakes had suddenly risen, and the quest for authenticity within her professional life now demanded personal engagement. The moment of truth awaited her, and she was prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The haunting question lingered, would she truly be able to make a difference? Rachel felt a rush of adrenaline as she stepped into a small cafe with a worn exterior but a welcoming air. She scanned the room, spotting Jake's mother, Elaine, seated at a corner table, her hands clasped tightly around a steaming cup of coffee. The warmth of the cafe contrasted sharply with the tension swirling in Rachel's mind. What could this woman possibly want from her? As she approached, Rachel noted the deep lines etched into Elaine's face. They were lines carved by struggle, not the highs and lows of corporate play, but the relentless battle of making ends meet, of ensuring that dreams weren't crushed under the weight of reality. Rachel had spent years crafting her identity in boardrooms and strategy meetings, yet now she found herself confronting a raw truth, one she had previously avoided in her climb to the top. "Rachel?" Elaine's voice was steady, but Rachel could see the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "Thank you for meeting with me. I received your message." Rachel felt her own voice tremble at the edges as they settled into a small dance of small talk, a fragile bridge they had to cross before unveiling deeper truths. Elaine nodded, her gaze unwavering. "I know that this isn't easy to talk about. But Jake has been struggling ever since he lost his job. He's not just another number on a spreadsheet to me," she said, letting the weight of her words sink in. "He's my son, and every day is a fight against a system that seems rigged against hard-working people like us." Rachel's heart sank. She had been so entrenched in the weight of company profits that hearing it framed in personal stakes forced her to confront her choices again. "What do you think I can do?" Her question felt inadequate, almost offensive, given the struggles Elaine represented. "Everything you do at your company affects lives. I know Jake worked harder than most, and to see him let go without notice felt like a betrayal." Elaine's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I heard about the complaints. I want you to know that whatever you choose to do, it matters. It can change lives in a real way." Rachel felt the emotional charge of Elaine's words resonate deep within her. She had never considered the ripple effect of her decisions, the tens of thousands of stories intertwined with the statistics she manipulated as CEO. Every choice was a live wire connected to real people, and yet here she was, having to shake off the cobwebs of apathy that had clouded her vision. What if I can help?" The words slipped out before Rachel had time to think them through. It felt reckless, yet at the same time liberating. This was not just about her company anymore, it was about reclaiming her lost integrity, aligning her actions with her newfound ambition for change. Elaine's expression shifted from guarded to hopeful. "You have power, Rachel. Don't underestimate what you can do. It takes someone in your position to voice what needs to be said." In that moment, a thread of determination intertwined with her earlier conviction. Rachel stood on the precipice of possibility, staring down the path of transparency, knowing it wouldn't be well received. The idea of confronting her colleagues again gnawed at her, the dissent she had witnessed during the meeting still loomed large. Yet, sitting here with Elaine, she felt a flicker of resolve breathe energy into her next steps. "I need to get back to the office and prepare," Rachel announced, standing abruptly. "I need to craft our narrative moving forward, and I want you to be part of it. I'll reach out to you for your story and your insights." Elaine nodded, a spark of gratitude lighting her features. "Thank you, Rachel. It's not just about the press releases and policies, it's about genuine connection." As Rachel stepped out of the cafe, clarity began to illuminate the fog of her ambitions. The confrontation didn't merely lie with her team, it extended far beyond. She was preparing to challenge a myriad of ingrained practices that had long stood unchallenged. But beneath her resolve lurked a question that gripped her: was she ready to lead this charge, knowing the inevitable resistance she would face? With this new understanding of the personal stakes, the moment of truth beckoned on the horizon, teasing her with the promise of transformative change not just for her company but for the lives intertwined with her decisions. Would she rise to the formidable challenge that lay ahead? The office buzzed with the usual blend of urgency and tension as Rachel entered, her mind racing with thoughts of her conversation with Elaine. The mundane grind of corporate life had felt disjointed before, but now it felt like a mask hiding deeper issues that required urgent attention. Today, everything she had built would face scrutiny, and somehow she felt invigorated by the challenge. Sitting at her desk, Rachel opened her laptop, hesitant yet determined to rewrite the narrative of her company. She dialed into a virtual meeting with the executive team, her stomach nodding as she thought about the potential backlash. As the screen lit up with familiar faces, she realized that boldness was not optional, it was imperative. "Good morning, everyone," Rachel began, her voice steady, albeit laced with urgency. "I want to talk about the feedback we received from our recent layoffs. It's difficult to view what we do as mere numbers, but I think we need to reassess our approach and consider the human impact of our decisions." The silence that followed was palpable. She could almost hear the gears turning in her colleagues' minds, weighing the financial metrics against the weight of their corporate conscience. "Rachel, with all due respect, we have to focus on profitability," Paul interjected, his brow furrowed. "Sometimes, tough decisions have to be made in the name of business sustainability." "Profitability without humanity is a hollow victory," she replied, the words flowing from her with unexpected conviction. "Every statistic represents real people and their families." I spoke to someone affected by our cuts, and her truth shook my understanding of our policies. We need to balance our objectives with compassion. Rachel's heart raced, the confrontation stirring something within her. In that moment, she wasn't merely performing her role, she was standing at the intersection of ethics and profit, grappling with her leadership responsibilities. "Are we willing to sacrifice our values for the bottom line?" she continued, carefully scanning the room for any flicker of support. "How many stories are we willing to overlook? I want to propose creating a new department dedicated to employee relations and outreach which will bridge our business decisions with the human impact they create." Skepticism rippled through the room. Rachel could sense the collective resistance as her colleagues exchanged glances. Torn between her desire for warmth and the calculated coldness of corporate thinking, Rachel felt their doubt like a heavy fog. "Rachel, I appreciate your passion," Christine offered, her voice hesitant. "But you're talking about resources and time. Will our board even entertain these changes?" "I believe they will if we present a compelling case," Rachel asserted, daring to challenge the unspoken limits of their corporate culture. "We need to frame it around retention strategies and improved employee engagement. Retaining talent is equally important, perhaps even more so, than short-term financial gains. This is an opportunity to redefine our legacy." The tension in the room crackled, but amidst the skepticism, Rachel could see a flicker of intrigue sparking in some eyes. Her pulse quickened as she realized she was not just seeking approval, she was igniting a conversation about moral responsibility that had long been buried. "This isn't just about numbers," Rachel pressed on, fueled with a newfound resolve. "We owe it to the people who work for us to foster an environment where they feel valued and understood. These changes may lead to a more loyal workforce, which ultimately will enhance our profitability." As she concluded, the silence returned, but it now felt lighter, charged with the possibility of change. She had stirred the pot, and perhaps for the first time, her truth had cracked the surface of corporate apathy. The meeting ended with more questions than answers, but Rachel felt a thrilling surge of momentum. Despite the challenge ahead, she recognized a growing sense of purpose. The path of resistance lay sprawling before her, but for each skepticism that surfaced, her vision solidified further. However, it was only the beginning. The real test loomed ahead: the board's reaction and the possible opposition from those who thrived in the status quo. Rachel braced herself to confront an escalating wave of resistance, a coming storm that would challenge not just her leadership skills but also her values. She had barely begun. What other hidden truths lingered in the shadows of her company, waiting to be unveiled? Before the day ended, Rachel decided she needed to dig deeper into the stories that lay beneath the surface. The moment of truth was still ahead, and she was closer to facing what had shaped her, yet remained unexamined. The morning sun streamed through the office windows, casting long shadows across Rachel's desk as she prepared for the next board meeting. Nervous energy coursed through her. She could feel the weight of the upcoming discussion pressing on her chest. The first meeting had sparked something profound, but this would be the ultimate test. What if the board rejected her proposals outright? What if Elaine's warning had been correct? Those thoughts permeated her mind like a chain, binding her resolve. Rachel pored over her notes, reviewing the statistics indicating the correlation between employee retention and profitability. She recognized that data could only tell part of the story. Behind every figure remained stories of lives disrupted. Sweat tinged her palms as she prepared her arguments, her mind flickering to the faces of those impacted by the layoffs. How could she present that compelling case without becoming emotionally overwhelmed? As the Zoom call loaded and the familiar faces appeared on screen, Rachel took a deep breath, fighting back the tumult of doubts. The board members greeted her with polite nods, but she could sense their underlying apprehension. They had weathered difficult discussions before, but they were now facing a conversation rippling with moral significance. "Thank you for joining today, everyone," she began, her tone resolved and articulate. "I want to build on our previous discussion about employee relations. I believe it is critical for us to adopt a more humane perspective when making corporate decisions." Paul raised an eyebrow, skepticism etched on his face. "Rachel, this can come off as a diversion. Our priority must be immediate profitability, not long-term social initiatives. We lose great talent when we prioritize profits over people," Rachel countered rapidly, tapping into the adrenaline of her conviction. "The foundation of a successful company is built on trust and loyalty. By fostering a supportive environment, we create advocates rather than just employees." As she spoke, her conviction fueled her pitch. She could feel the board's attention shift. She was not merely a cog in the machine but a person advocating for change. Yet, there was a nagging doubt she couldn't shake off, the fear of being overwhelmed and shut down before she made her point. Christine spoke up, gazing thoughtfully at Rachel. "You mentioned stories last time. Could you perhaps share one to emphasize your point?" Rachel's heart raced. She had thought a lot about this request, recalling a poignant encounter she had during her visit to the affected departments. She began to share, "When I met Wendy, a single mother laid off just before the holidays," her story struck home. She had worked here for over 7 years, dedicated and passionate. Losing her job meant not just an income but hope for her son's future. "This isn't simply about reducing gaps in our budget, it's about creating an environment where employees feel secure, valued, and understood." The board's silence morphed from apprehension to contemplation, an undercurrent of empathy threaded through their expressions. Rachel pressed on, tapping into their nascent curiosity. "Imagine a company where stories like Wendy's don't exist because we prioritize support over short-term gains. By creating a dedicated department for employee engagement, we not only protect our workforce but enhance loyalty, decrease turnover, and ultimately drive our profits higher than before." She saw heads nodding slowly, the walls of resistance beginning to soften, yet one challenge loomed in the periphery. She knew that while conversations ignited hope, the true battle lay with their next decisions. As the meeting concluded, Rachel felt an exhilarating mix of triumph and anxiety. The board's intrigue was encouraging, yet she sensed that the front line of her fight lay ahead, fighting for buy-in from individuals resistant to change, individuals who thrived on the status quo. While others lingered to share their thoughts, she stepped out into the hallway, her mind racing with the next phase of her strategy. She needed to prepare for the individual meetings to come. Each one could potentially either propel her vision forward or see it crushed. But one thought clawed at her mind: if she could uncover more stories, stories that echoed Wendy's, could that transform the board's resistance into commitment? Each forgotten narrative represented a thread that could weave the foundation of her new vision. And with that realization came a single question that would push Rachel toward her next steps: what other voices lingered in the shadow of corporate silence, waiting to be heard? Rachel paced her small office, the hum of the fluorescent lights a stark contrast to the buzz of ideas swirling in her mind. The board meeting had awakened a deeper sense of purpose within her. But clarity brought weight. Her next steps must be even bolder. She could no longer dwell on generalities. Her call to action required specificity, backed by personal narratives, the human stories that corporate data often obscured. She decided to use her lunch break to visit the departments directly impacted by the layoffs. If she could integrate first-hand accounts into her proposals, those voices could transform abstract statistics into real-life consequences. It was time to gather stories of struggle, resilience, and hope. Outside, the crisp autumn air revitalized her spirit. She wandered through the office complex, her mind racing with potential conversations. Anticipation charged her step, yet, an undercurrent of doubt nagged at her. What if they wouldn't want to share? What if their stories were too painful to relive? Once she reached the marketing department, she knocked lightly on the door before entering. The atmosphere was tense, an unspoken fear clung to the office, remnants of recent layoffs lingered in the uncompressed joy of teamwork. "Hey everyone, do you have a moment?" Rachel called out cheerfully, but the smiles were faint. "I'm looking to gather some insights into your experiences, specifically related to our recent changes." Alice, a junior marketer who had once been full of enthusiasm, spoke hesitantly. "What do you mean by experiences, Rachel?" Rachel carefully considered her approach. "I'm focusing on how these shifts have impacted not just our work, but our lives. If there's anything you feel comfortable sharing, your voices could help shape our company's future direction." At first, there was silence, a wall of apprehension. Rachel felt the weight of her invitation hanging in the air. Then, slowly, a hand rose. Bill, a senior member with an extensive background in the industry. "I guess I can share something." His voice trembled slightly as he began recounting how he struggled to make ends meet after his wife was laid off. The emotional toll had seeped into their relationship, straining the fabric of family life. Rachel listened intently, her heart aching with each revelation. As Bill spoke, others began to chime in, sharing their fears and equally poignant stories. The young couple on the brink of losing their housing, the mother concerned for her child's education after layoffs cut their family income, and the once hopeful intern who had to rethink her career path. Gathering these accounts ignited a flame within Rachel. She found herself not just a listener but a vessel, carrying these experiences back to the boardroom. Each story painted a vivid picture of loss and uncertainty, illuminating the stark reality behind the numbers she had initially laid out. After what felt like hours, Rachel felt both exhausted and invigorated. The stories transformed from whispers of fear to a chorus of shared truth. Yet, amid this energy was a lingering anxiety. Would she truly convey the depth of their struggles? As Rachel left the marketing floor, she recalled the importance of translating these intimate obstacles into a compelling business narrative. Not simple pity, but a charge for the board to see beyond profits towards purpose. The hours she spent had revealed something vital. She was not merely a spokesperson advocating change, she was an advocate for lives deeply intertwining with their corporate narrative. Yet, as her sense of purpose boiled within her, Rachel realized that the hardest part was still to come: the individual conversations with board members and department heads who held the power to enact change. Their biases were rooted deep in tradition, and she would need to summon courage far beyond her previous meetings to challenge them. With her notepad filled with stories, Rachel steeled herself for this next daunting battle. She would not only be advocating for change, she would be their voice. As she prepared for her next strategy meeting, one question loomed in her mind: would she be capable of confronting the powerful opponents of change, the very individuals who thrived on tradition? The moment of truth was closing in. Rachel stood in front of the mirror, the bright light illuminating the shadows beneath her eyes. Last night's conversations echoed in her mind, a mix of raw emotion and stark reality. Recalling Bill's trembling voice, she felt a surge of determination intertwined with the heavy weight of responsibility. She was no longer just an employee, she had become a messenger, and she needed to do justice to those stories. After a deep breath, she straightened her blazer. The office was abuzz with activity as she walked through the halls. Yet, an unsettling stillness hung around her. With each step towards the boardroom, she visualized the faces of those who had shared their lives with her. Would the executives, seated in their plush chairs, be willing to yield to this new form of narrative? Would they truly listen? Entering the boardroom, Rachel was greeted by a mixture of skeptical glances and passive indifference. The usual corporate pleasantries rang hollow against the atmosphere of impending confrontation. She set her notepad on the sleek conference table and prepared herself for the battle ahead. The meeting commenced with the standard figures: their projected earnings, growth margins, and market share. As the numbers slid by on the screen, Rachel felt an urgency. She interrupted, "Before we move on, I'd like to discuss something of greater significance." The sudden shift in tone drew some heads up. Executives exchanged glances. Few had seen Rachel deviate from her usual support role. "Our recent layoffs have created a ripple effect. It's essential we understand the human element that these statistics obscure." A murmur rippled through the room. Rachel pressed onward, feeling a mix of fear and fierce resolve. "I spoke with several colleagues from marketing. Their experiences are not just anecdotes, they are the heart of our company's performance." She began relaying the stories, embedding facts within emotional narratives. Bill's struggle to manage his family on an uncertain income, the couple facing eviction, Alice's fear of an uncertain future. As their lives unfolded in the boardroom, Rachel noticed a shift in her audience. The numbers lost their grip, the human element seeped in, challenging the comfort of performance metrics. However, she could see the resistance setting in. Mark, the CFO, shifted in his seat as if data alone was the bastion of survival. "Rachel, while these stories are compelling, decisions must be grounded in financial strategy. Emotion alone doesn't drive profitability." A surge of frustration coursed through her. "I'm not suggesting we ignore profits, Mark. But we can no longer afford to compartmentalize people and numbers. We need to ask ourselves, what kind of company do we want to be? One that values only the dollar, or one that upholds its people?" The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Rachel's pulse quickened. She had established the battleground. What she hadn't anticipated was the vortex of emotion that swirled within her. A cavalcade of doubts flashed. Had she gone too far? Was she risking her position with such impassioned rhetoric? Yet, she held her ground. "These are not just statistics, they represent loss, fear, and the potential for recovery." Rachel leaned forward, her voice steady. "If we want to pivot towards a sustainable future, we must ensure our teams feel seen and supported." A few members exchanged looks of confusion, others appeared engrossed. Slowly, a spark ignited in one of the board members' eyes. Jack, the head of operations, leaned toward her. "What are you suggesting, Rachel? How do we integrate this into our initiative?" His question lingered in the air, an opening. Rachel's mind raced. This was her moment to propose actionable strategies, but it required firm grounding. She recognized the transformation within herself. This wasn't just a presentation, it was a call to align values with action. Feeling empowered, she began crafting her response, her voice solidifying. "We start a dialogue. We actively create an environment where transparency is nurtured, and every voice is counted, like the stories I've shared. It's not just about restructuring, it's about recrafting who we are as a corporation." As she spoke, Rachel realized that her confrontation with the board was not just about advocating for change, it was a litmus test of her own growth and resolve. Would they embrace the narrative she offered as a tool for transformation, or would her attempt at humanizing the company be dismissed in favor of cold calculations? The weight of her ambition pressed down on her as she awaited their response, the stakes impossibly high. The moment of reckoning was unmistakably upon them, and Rachel was left wondering what would happen if they chose to ignore the humanity behind their decisions. As silence enveloped the room, Rachel's eyes darted nervously from one executive to another. She could feel the weight of their gaze as palpable as the tension gripping the air. Suddenly, Jack leaned back, arms crossed, a pensive look overtaking his usually confident demeanor. "I think we could use some example initiatives to guide us." Rachel felt a new surge of confidence. She seized the opportunity to outline specific strategies: workshops focused on employee well-being, open forums for discussions, and mentorship programs that connected seasoned employees with those struggling to adapt. Each idea flowed more effortlessly than the last, the narratives of her colleagues fueling her advocacy. "Yes, that's exactly it. We could collect anonymized stories regularly and utilize them for ongoing training in leadership. It's not just about numbers, it's about integrating real human experiences into our corporate fabric, she articulated, feeling her heartbeat steady, her passion sparking clearer thinking, but then she saw the flicker of doubt return in Mark's eyes. Rachel, it's admirable that you want to humanize our processes. But these ideas, they require time. Time is money. We can't afford to divert resources without a clear ROI. At that moment, Rachel's stomach twisted. The fear of dismissal loomed large. Yet deep down, she understood this was an essential crossroads, her conviction versus the corporate status quo. Taking a calculated breath, she replied, "What if the cost of doing nothing is far greater than any investment we make now? Unseen turmoil leads to more layoffs, lack of productivity, and a toxic work environment. This is not just a risk, it's a dire necessity." The eyes around her began to flicker with the tiniest hint of contemplation, but she could sense it was still precariously balanced on a knife's edge. "I understand the hesitation, but let me draw an example from our recent layoffs. What if we had known of the personal struggles happening behind those faces?" She continued, her voice gaining earnestness. "When we collected those stories after the fact, we missed the opportunity to preemptively shape a different outcome. Imagine the trust we could build." Her words hung in the air, as she waited for the executives to respond. They were caught off guard, and she could hear the gears turning. The barrier separating the cold figures and human stories was beginning to blur. The new path she envisioned slowly dawned upon them, but would it be enough to bring about real change? Jack sat up straight, engaged. "If we truly are committed to being a forward-thinking company, I can see the long-term benefits. How about we conduct a pilot project in one department? Let us put your ideas into motion on a smaller scale first. Changes can't happen overnight, but a pilot project could work to our advantage," Rachel affirmed, her heart racing with hope. The moment glimmered like an opening door, and she felt suddenly buoyed. Could this prove to be the catalyst for larger-scale reform? As discussions around logistics began materializing, she felt an internal shift. The gravity of responsibility was transforming into galvanized hope. This wasn't merely an argument, it was solidarity starting to crystallize around her aspirations. Rachel caught glimpses of camaraderie, and together, although uncertain, they began collaboratively brainstorming on formalizing the initiative, yet, something nagged at her. As her voice receded into the eloquent discourse among her colleagues, an unsettling thought emerged. If this initiative succeeded, what would that mean for her? Would she truly step into a leadership role, or would her position remain as a well-meaning yet peripheral voice? Her thoughts raced. The risk of empowering people was now matched by the risk of her own upward mobility. What if she finally got what she aimed for but found herself unprepared for the burdens it would carry? Rachel pushed the doubts aside, focusing instead on the possibility unfolding before her. Let us ensure that our next steps create lasting impact, not just surface changes, she proposed, her voice steady with resolve. Let us commit to this journey together. As excitement buzzed in the room and ideas cascaded with renewed energy, Rachel felt almost euphoric. Yet, with it came a disquieting awareness of her goals intertwining with the burgeoning hope of her colleagues. Their shared narratives now were tethered to her vision of leadership. The discussion spiraled forward, but in the back of her mind lingered a single, haunting question: could she balance the expectations of the company with the very narrative she sought to elevate? The stakes were rising, more personally than ever before. Just as Rachel was lost in thought, a notification pinged from her phone. It was an unknown number. Before she could check it, Jack's voice echoed in the boardroom. "So, when shall we get started on this?" She was about to answer when the message notification flashed again, seizing her attention. Her heart skipped as she opened it. What new revelation lay behind this seemingly innocuous call? Rachel's heart thudded against her ribcage as she read the message. An unknown number, but the words revealed a haunting familiarity. "I need to talk. It's about your mother." The screen blurred momentarily as anxiety clawed at the edges of her consciousness. Before she could fully process the implications, Jack's eager voice pulled her back into the room. Let's aim to kick off the pilot by next month. It sounds like we can quickly implement some training sessions within the team. Rachel nodded, forcing a professional smile. Yet, inside, her mind was racing. The mere mention of her mother had summoned a cascade of memories, long conversations at the kitchen table, her mother's reign over familial affairs, and the shadow of her own insecurities. Each memory pulled her deeper into the whirlpool of thoughts. What could this stranger possibly know? Rachel? Jack's tone shifted to inquiry. Sorry, just considering the details, she responded, shaking off the distraction. The weight of responsibilities filled the room, and she allowed herself to stay present. We should look into forming a small focus group of employees willing to share their experiences. Solid idea. Mark added, his expression thawing a bit. Incorporating real input from within might give our plan the backbone it needs. The responses encouraged her further, a brief flicker of validation sweeping through her as she began drafting the outline of the focus group on her notepad, but the message still pulsed at the forefront of her mind. As logistics continued to unravel in the room, Rachel's attention wavered, tethered between ambition and impending anxiety. Each passing conversation about schedules, training requirements, and feedback processes only amplified the noise in her head. Could she actually get her mother down to the office to face these truths? Her shaky resolve delivered a fierce realization. Her personal history wouldn't allow her to hide anymore, not if she intended to be the leader she aspired to be. Channeling her fear inward, she committed to push through. If she could instill change in others, perhaps she could also confront her own narrative. As discussions progressed, she began weaving in her own perspective more deliberately, advocating for the worth of individual stories in shaping company culture. The challenge hung over her, bridging her ambitions with the corporate landscape she had known since joining the firm. She was keenly aware that this space, bustling with executives now on board with her vision, could easily turn her back if she faltered. At last, Mark leaned over, breaking her reverie. Rachel, what are your thoughts on changing our performance metrics to include qualitative data rather than just quantitative? The thought flared, igniting a sense of urgency within her. We can't afford to ignore the emotional well-being of our employees. Each metric tells a story, we should learn to read them. Rachel felt the heartbeat of change reverberate both within the room and within her. This initiative was developing into something larger than herself, a testament not just to company policy but her core aspirations. But as excitement flowed throughout the boardroom and discussions bubbled towards the horizon of outreach strategies, Rachel paused momentarily. The weight of her mother's impending revelation hovered beside her like an unseen specter, revealing the paradox of her journey. Could she guide others if her own home life was still shrouded in mysteries yet untold? Would these newly resolved changes sway her priorities or fortify them? The meeting concluded, and a wave of camaraderie washed over her as colleagues secured commitments to the initiative. Yet beneath that bubbling positivity lay a riptide of uncertainty. All the hopes she had sewn together now entwined with deeper familial issues, and she felt the tug of both worlds growing ever stronger. As she collected her belongings, she glanced at her phone, the message still illuminated. In the murky mix of personal growth and professional aspiration, one question crystallized in her mind: was she ready to confront her past to truly step into the future she envisioned? Just as she was setting her phone down, the screen lit up again, fresh news from that unknown number, pulling her back into its orbit. What awaited on the other side of that message could change everything, again. Rachel Morgan stood alone in her office, the hum of the bustling company surrounding her like a distant echo. It had been weeks since she realized the profound impact of the conversations she had conversations not only with her board but also with employees like Jake's mother, Elaine, and the others whose stories had seeped into her consciousness like ink on a page. The pull of those narratives resonated within her heart, compelling her to act. Now, as the sun began to set, casting a soft glow through the large windows, Rachel felt a different kind of urgency, the urgency to confront her own past. The unknown message from the number that had reached out to her lingered at the back of her mind like an unanswered question. It had taken all her focus not to let it distract her during the transformative meetings. But now, at this critical juncture in her career, it demanded resolution. She had built a bridge to incorporate transparency and empathy into her corporate culture, empowering employees with new initiatives, a pivotal growth she never anticipated. Yet, could she also extend that compassion inward? Taking a deep breath, Rachel picked up her phone and dialed the unknown number. It rang only once before being picked up. "Hello?" A familiar voice rang through, trembling slightly yet anchored by determination. "Hi, is this my mom?" Rachel replied, her chest tightening. "Yes, Rachel. It's me," her mother answered cautiously. A rush of emotions flooded through Rachel: anger, regret, longing, but above all, an undeniable urge to understand. "I got your message. You said you needed to talk. What is going on?" There was a long pause on the line. Rachel could almost hear the gears turning in her mother's mind, a space that had always felt weighed down by secrets and silence. "I saw the news. About the changes at your company, how you've started advocating for fair treatment of employees and their stories." Rachel sighed, feeling the weight of countless memories flood back. Years of struggling to build a career while also navigating a strained relationship with her mother were finally starting to unravel. "Yeah, it's been a transformative time for me, I guess. I've learned a lot about the stories behind the numbers," she articulated, her voice softening. "It's more than that, don't you think?" Her mother's response pulled Rachel back in the insight penetrating the facade of her professional armor. "You're really opening up about your own past, too, aren't you?" The lump in Rachel's throat swelled, and she found herself nodding, even though her mother couldn't see her. "I thought I was just focusing on the company. But maybe you're right. Your journey has changed you. You're no longer the girl afraid of her ambition. You found a path to honor those connections, to show people they matter." There was pride hidden in her words, mixed with an unyielding sadness. The phone trembled in Rachel's hand. "Mom, I want to change our narrative, too. I don't want to stay in the shadows of our past anymore. We need to talk, really talk." The silence that followed felt heavy yet promising, a bridge made of whispers and hopes. Rachel was finally ready to confront her fears and address the wounds that had long kept them apart. As they began to peel back the layers of their fractured communication, Rachel felt a weight lift off her shoulders, opening her up to a realm of healing that she hadn't anticipated. Each word became a stepping stone toward understanding, illuminating the importance of authenticity in both her professional domain and personal life. In that moment of connection, Rachel recognized her own transformation not just as a CEO but as a daughter who had found the courage to confront her past. This was her tangible achievement. Returning to her office later that evening, Rachel felt a renewed sense of purpose. The echoes of personal stories and the shared connections of struggle and triumph had come full circle. She pored over the notes she had taken at the company meetings, refining her vision for the new initiatives. With each keystroke, she felt her own story melding with those of her employees, forging a collective narrative. Within weeks, Rachel's pilot program rolled out, accompanied by a firm commitment to employee narratives woven into the company's policy framework. The ripple effect was immediate: employee engagement soared, and morale transformed. Colleagues who had once felt silence began to share their journeys, fostering an environment rich in vulnerability and trust. Just as the fruits of her labor began to manifest: positive press, unexpected sponsorships, and heartfelt testimonials, Rachel reconnected with her mother in a way she hadn't thought possible. Their reunion became a clarion call for authenticity and healing, shaking loose decades of entangled narratives that had bound them. Rachel stood in the boardroom, her colleagues gathered around, each face reflecting renewed hope and courage. This time, she felt an unwavering confidence emanate from her core. It was a confidence earned from the crucible of confronting her past and deciding to lead with heart. She smiled, her eyes shining with purpose. "Together, we will redefine what it means to be a company that values its people, creating pathways for every voice to be heard, and this is only the beginning." As she finished speaking, the room erupted in applause, enthusiasm soaring higher than it had in years. The recognition was palpable, acknowledgement of her growth and the profound impact of her journey. Rachel Morgan had accomplished what she set out to do. She not only transformed her company but regained her own sense of self. With every story shared and every connection forged, she had created ripples that would echo through both her professional and personal life, reinforcing the idea that true leadership is built on authenticity and compassion. This was her moment of triumph, transformed by understanding, elevated by connection, and grounded in real change. You need to subscribe now to our channel for more exclusive emotional stories that will touch your heart. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us reach more viewers who need inspiration. Comment your reactions and theories about this conclusion. We want to hear from you. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness the power of overcoming personal challenges. Your support makes a difference.